14.
Hello, everybody. This is episode 155 of 40 going on 14. I am Mike.
I am Patrick.
I'm Joel.
And I'm Josh, and hanging out with me is like being roasted all the time. You just have to pretend I'm honoring you.
That's really true.
I'm changing my whole perspective.
Sometimes the truth hurts.
Josh's your little motto is, we only roast the ones around us.
The ones in earshot. So we are doing a roast show, which I think was a listener suggestion, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Mabelina.
Mabelina, which kind of brings up a question. Does Mabelina really love roast then?
She does.
Nice.
Yeah, with the potatoes and carrots and...
Oh, yeah.
Roast.
At like 275 for 3 hours, so it cooks real slow.
Boom. Roasted.
Now I'm hungry.
Mabelina roast.
Okay, you went down a weird road again.
You made it weird.
I'm sorry.
Hey, Josh.
If you'd like to make it weird, you know where you can go?
To Scott the Pool Boy.
Pat's house?
Come to my house if you'd like to make it weird.
I was thinking the Podcast Collective, where you can find such weird and geeky shows as the Bad Parenting Podcast, On the Block, No Hope for Humanity, the Coffin Joe Cast, Joel's Own the Sunshine Happy Pants Hour, Dating Baggage, The Internet with Scott the Pool Boy, I Am Salt Lake, Mint and Boxcast, Tales from the Hard Side, The Dog and Deuce Show, The Empty Rant Podcast, and the Rad Dad Radio Hour.
You know, I've been so focused on the Rad Dad Radio Hour that I never noticed the Dog and Deuce Show. What the hell is the Dog and Deuce Show about?
Oh, we even have hyperlinks in our show.
Oh, it's a sports talk show.
Ah, like the Left Field Sports Lounge.
So, you know what? If you want a Dog a Deuce... At one point, I don't know what that means. On Saturdays, you can find us on Geek Life Radio at noon, and listen to our shows then.
The Dog and Douche Show is the sister show to the Chicken and the Douche.
Oh, God, that's a callback. He's a chicken, and he's a douche. It's Chicken and the Douche. That would be a terrible show. Speaking of terrible shows... What's the
sound effect for a douche? Alright, I'm sorry I asked. Never mind.
Speaking of terrible, if you want to catch some of our earlier stuff, you can find it on iTunes, Blueberry, Stitcher, and TalkShoe. And every week I am uploading one of the older shows that is still not there. So now we are on to the next show that's going to be uploaded probably right about the same time as this one. Will be the Sexy Michael Caine Italian Job show.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the Italian Job was that early of one of our shows.
I know, it doesn't seem that long ago, does it?
Right?
So, but, so if you want to find our old stuff, like I said, iTunes, Blueberry, Stitcher, and TalkShoe, and if you'd like to get in touch with us, it's 708-NOW-RAP. That's 708-669-9727.
We're a little light on listener feedback this week, so I think we're going to go directly into About That Time.
Is it about that time?
I must be.
This week in music, movies, and TV.
And sports.
So we're doing something a little different this week, aren't we, Mike?
Yeah, we're shuffling it up a little bit. Everyone's taking a section. Joel is taking music, because Joel is the music guy. Josh has got movies, which... Movies is what I wrote up there, not movies and
because
Josh.
Movies.
TV is me, and Patrick is the sports guy. So, Joel, tell us a little bit about music.
All right. So our week this week is October 31st, 1974, the premiere of the Dean Martin Celebrity Roast. The number one song in the land was Then Came You by Dionne Warwick and the Spinners, followed by Stevie Wonder's You Haven't Done Nothing and Bachman Turner Overdrives, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. No, baby. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Those are three good songs.
That's before Dionne Warwick was psychic, right?
Yes.
Yes. She didn't know it yet.
She didn't see the collapse of her career coming until later.
Speaking of which, she was on one of the roasts I watched. And she was cute back then. Cornell Irel Hayes Jr. was born on November 2nd in St. Louis, Missouri. the armpit of America, and later grew to fame.
I'm sorry, I'm calling death.
Oh, we'll find out. And later grew to fame as Nelly, a rapper, singer, songwriter, entrepreneur, and actor.
Not dead.
And questionable at acting. Nelly began his solo career in 2000 with his debut album, Country Grammar. The album debuted at number 3 and went on to peak at number 1, being his best-selling album to date, selling over 8.4 million copies in the U.S. His following album, Nellyville, produced his number 1 hits, It's Getting Hot in Here and Dilemma, featuring Kelly Rowland, who is not Dionne Warwick. Nelly won Grammy Awards in 2003, 4, and a supporting role in the 2005 film The Longest Yard, which someday we'll do a show about that. He has 2 clothing lines. The RIAA ranks Nelly as the 4th selling rap artist in American music history, and Billboard ranked Nelly the number 3 top artist of the decade.
I got 2 more bells. Bong, bong.
And
Get your heads ringing.
Ding, ding, dong. I have to say that's terrible. Anyway, not you, Nelly.
Is Nelly the guy who peed on the chick?
What's that?
Is Nelly the guy who peed on the chick?
No, that was R. Kelly.
Oh.
His cousin. Maybe. Born November 4th, Cedric Bixler Zavala is a Grammy Award-winning musician, frontman, and lyricist of the progressive rock band The Mars Volta, and as a frontman and occasional guitarist of the post-hardcore group At the Drive-In, which is a kind of a good group. Currently, he is a singer in a band, Antamask, and also sings and plays guitar in his band, Zavalas. He has also played drums for a number of acts, including the dub act De Facto, and more recently, Big Sur and Anywhere. Good Lord, the guy's in a lot of bands. He's in more bands than I am in podcasts.
Have you heard of any of those, Joe?
At the Drive-In, I have their first record. It's solid. Mars Volta, of course, I think everybody's heard of them.
I've never heard of any of these bands.
I've never heard of any of these.
Oh, I'm just grateful of all the words that are in that sentence is that Joel had to read it.
The rest of them, though, no, I've not heard of any of the other ones except those first 2. You'd like the Mars Volta, Josh. That's right up your alley. At the Drive-In, maybe, too. But anyway, movies.
All right, movies. The number 1 movie in the land is Airport, 1975, the disaster film sequel to the disaster film Airport. So they just tacked a year on it.
Clever.
That works.
Well, that's what they did for Stanley Kubrick.
Don't call me Shirley.
But they did
Also,
for Godzilla.
go ahead.
I'll say Godzilla, too. Godzilla 2000.
Yeah.
Also
and Blues Brothers.
2000.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre premieres in Los Angeles on October 30th.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2000.
And 1.
Also, Leaf Phoenix was born October 28th. You may know him from his child actor roles in Parenthood, Murder, She Wrote, Space Camp, and the acronym of the week, TNLITB, which is, of course, Tennessee Newts leaking in the balls.
Ow.
What? Was that nudes or newts?
Both? I was going with newts, but...
I thought it was nukes.
Yo.
What actually is that?
The new Leave It to Beaver.
Ah, the new Leave It to Beaver. Or you may know this Leaf Phoenix from his birth name of Joaquin.
Oh. Space Camp. Oh, yeah. I remember Space Camp. I didn't know he was in Parenthood, much less.
Yeah, he played the son that had the videotapes.
Had the hair lip?
And the door locked and everything.
Oh, the porn kid.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
All right. Born Ralph Harold Wigger in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I got a bad feeling about this dude. Ralph Harold was an American character actor who often played gangsters. Not looking good for him. Between 1920 and 1963, he appeared in 99 films, including Jimmy the Gent, Baby Take a Bow, A Tale of Two Cities, and Murder, My Sweet. And, of course, he died in Santa Monica, California on November 1st.
99 films, but his life ain't one.
Oh.
I got 99 problems about a pulsate one.
There you go. That's better than mine.
That actually, I've seen Murder, My Sweet. Yeah,
I don't think I've seen any of these.
Yeah, it's
I
a
don't
Philip
recognize any of them.
It's a Philip Marlowe story with Dick Powell playing Philip Marlowe.
Nice.
I love those old like gumshoe type movies.
Yeah, the film noir stuff.
Oh yeah.
The Thin Man is my favorite.
Thin Man.
So good.
I could watch that all damn day.
Yep. What was the name of the dog?
Asta.
Esther.
Esther? Okay.
Yep.
Close enough.
Close enough. I'll give you credit.
Thank
I
you.
like Asta better.
I'm a big fan of Touch of Evil, which I've gone on record with Charlton Heston as the least convincing Latino ever.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, your people and mine will never see eye to eye.
Nope.
I
As
don't
a
know.
Mexican.
Hombre.
Have you ever seen Charles Bronson play an American Indian?
You ever seen John Wayne play Genghis Khan?
I think Wayne as Genghis Khan was more believable.
I have actually calling out Patrick as being wrong. The
Because-
name of the dog was Asta, not Esther.
Oh, was it Asta?
Yeah.
Oh.
Told you I liked it better.
See?
All right, last up for movies. Movies released this week include Phantom of the Paradise, The Four Musketeers, and Open Season.
Now, The Four Musketeers. Which one? I remember seeing this, and it's
That's the sequel to The Three Musketeers
was gonna say, this is
by
from-
Brian De Palma.
This is from 2 years before I existed, so you got me.
okay. The Four Musketeers. Here we go. IMDb. Yeah, it's the one. Michael York, Raquel Welch, and Oliver Reed.
Yeah. Christopher Lee's in it. I mean, it's a huge cast.
Holy cow!
Nice.
Faye Dunaway, Roy Kinnear. God, I love Roy Kinnear.
Huge cast.
He's no Nelly.
I like those lists of movies. I get to sound like Movie Phone. For Phantom of the Paradise, press 1.
Meep.
For The Four Musketeers, press 2.
Why don't you tell me the name of the movie you want to see?
All right, so TV, All in the Family, Sanford and Son, and Chico and the Man are the top shows. I'm coming for you, Elizabeth.
One of the best theme songs ever.
Yeah, I really like Sanford and Son's new album.
I don't know. I like the theme song from
That's
Northern
Mumford.
Oh,
like-
Mumford and Son. Oh, yeah, them too.
Northern Exposure's theme song is better.
What about, okay, given a choice between the two, Sanford and Son or Barney Miller for a theme song?
Ooh.
Sanford and Son.
Yeah, probably Sanford and Son.
Think so?
It's got that funky bass line. Gotta go for it.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, that's like a jazz bass line, not a
That's
funk.
Dean Martin, apparently.
Bing Crosby.
All right, so Stafford Aloysius, Rep, was an American actor best known for his role as Police Chief Clancy O'Hara, opposite Adam West's character on Batman. Oh no. And he hung up the bat phone for the last time on November 5th. Aw. That's sad.
Only 4 days after Ralph Harold Wigger.
He was just 3 days from retirement.
I'm getting too old for this shit.
And up in heaven, now the Wiggers got rep.
Dude.
You're on your own on that one, dude. Moving on.
Yeah, I got nothing.
I like that one. I don't care who you are. That's funny.
Speaking of things only Pat likes, sports.
The New York Islanders have two players, Billy McMillan and Ed Westfall, with a hat trick in the same game on October 28th. You guys know what a hat trick is in hockey?
Oh, yeah.
It's where they throw octopus on the ice.
No.
Yes. But that there's a reason for that. It's not just,
Because they score 3 goals.
there you go. Yeah, two guys scored 3 goals each in one game, which is
Nice.
Is
I
it
mean,
ridiculous.
6 is a pretty high hockey scorer in general.
right.
Yeah.
The Rumble in the Jungle, a historic boxing event held in Zaire, took place on October 30th in front of a crowd of 60,000 people. It pitted the undefeated world heavyweight champion George Foreman against challenger Muhammad Ali, the former heavyweight champion. Ali won by knockout just before the end of the 8th round. This boxing match has been called arguably the greatest sporting event of the 20th century.
I would
Boy.
say so.
That was huge, that boxing match.
Allie grilled Foreman.
This was the first match after Ali forfeited his championship because he would not be drafted into Vietnam.
Really?
Oh.
And that's why it was held in Africa, because he wasn't allowed to fight in America.
Neat.
Yep. All right, and then the last fact of sports. On October 30th, Nolan Ryan of the California Angels threw the record fastest pitch in Major League Baseball's history at 100.9 miles per hour.
Okay, I'd like to point out 2 things. Number 1, there was no cricket. Number 2, there was no difficult names.
What do you mean there was no difficult names?
Mike, would you
You
agree?
had Cedric Bixler Zavala.
Yeah, seriously.
No, I mean in sports.
Oh, in sports? No, there were plenty of difficult names across the board.
Yeah. I couldn't find any cricket. I mean, the only thing I found on cricket was a guy who was born, and he didn't really do anything noteworthy. So
Zavalas isn't difficult. Why?
I'm disagreeing with him.
I think you're wrong.
I think Joel's point is that Pat didn't have any difficult names in the first week he's doing that section.
Yeah, I get that's what he's saying. He's trying to throw me under the bus. But originally, I was going to have Mike do sports anyway, so it wouldn't have mattered.
Wait.
I decided to change him, for future.
Joel has a bus? All right, so there you go. That's This Week in 1974. Ew.
Lots of douche, sorry.
All right, we are back, and we are going to talk about roasts. Now, like I said, this was a suggestion from astute listener Mabelina, who apparently loves roasts. Apparently the Friars Club, which was started in 1904, originally called the Press Agents Association. Actors, musicians, and comedians joined on later. The tradition of roasting one member a year began in 1949 with a roast of Maurice Chevalier.
Yeah, apparently that roast was pretty racy. Like, in 1949, you had a comic drop the F-bomb on stage.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Now, Maurice Chevalier, he's the one from...
the Vaudeville Star?
No, from... crap. Thank heaven for little girls. Is that him?
Yes.
Yes.
What movie am I...
No, it's the other Maurice Chevalier.
What? Fuck you. What movie am I thinking of?
Gigi? I think that was... Yeah.
Was it Gigi where he sang that? Or was it...
It was definitely Gigi.
Okay. I thought it was My Fair Lady.
I'm just going from YouTube.
Okay.
Maurice Chevalier, Thank Heaven for Little Girls from the film Gigi.
Okay, Gigi then. All right, so...
Right. So the roasts were televised...
You're right, Gigi.
In the late 60s on NBC. They had the Kraft Music Hall program, and then in the 70s, it kind of started on the Dean Martin show. They started doing like a Man of the Week once, because his ratings started dropping, so they added this new feature, and it kind of became more popular than the Dean Martin show, and then they started in 1974 the Dean Martin Celebrity Roast on NBC. It was its own show. And then in 1998, the Friars Club started again with Comedy Central, and 2002 Comedy Central kind of took it over from them and started their Comedy Central roasts, and the Friars Club started their own, and they kind of split off. And the Friars Club, that still do roasts from time to time, like they did Quentin Tarantino in 2010, and they put it up on the internet and stuff like that. But Comedy Central roast does something every single year.
I would love to see that.
I'm thinking it's more the Friars Club was kind of like, you know what, Comedy Central, you go ahead.
Yeah, and we'll get to what's changed in the second half of the show, because there's a definite thematic change when Comedy Central loses the Friars Club name, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
They still have the, what do they call it, where all the people are sitting?
The dais.
Dais, yes.
They have a name for it. The dais, that's it.
Or the panel.
Yeah. But in the early days... In the early days of the clubs, they were populated by a bunch of legendary comedians like Bob Hope, Groucho Marx, Buddy Hackett.
Buddy Hackett.
Many of whom, like Milton Berle, Johnny Carson, Don Rickles, and Jack Benny, also took their turn as roastee. They honored celebs not known primarily for their comedy, like Humphrey Bogart, Harry Belafonte, George Steinbrenner. And the Friars Club motto was, "We only roast the ones we love," which Josh riffed on earlier. And early roasters did seem to have a deep respect for the butt of the jokes and relied more on anecdotes than one-liners, which that kind of changed. I mean, at least by the time the Dean Martin stuff was going around.
Well, I mean, the Dean Martin roast,
There seemed to be a lot of one-liners.
They were famous especially for, Foster Brooks always getting up and telling some kind of story about, being a part of their life before they were famous.
Yeah, doing his drunk character.
Is Foster Brooks the guy who played the drunk in Blazing Saddles?
No.
No. Okay.
No, the country gibberish?
Yeah.
No.
That was Gabby Johnson.
Yeah,
May have been tribute. Though.
I, for one, am glad the kids were here to hear Gabby Johnson's rant.
Yes. The content of the earliest roasts were extremely blue for their time, and roasts have always had value as a place to push against the bounds of propriety.
They were, well, I know the first,
which still rings true.
Okay, yeah, let's do the trivia.
Yeah, actually, it's kind of an unwritten rule, and it's often brought up during roasts that it's going to be raunchy. It's going to be a little bit worse than what you would normally hear even in a comedy club. They like Joel said, they are always pushing against the bounds of propriety. Well, the one time everybody kind of in unison agreed that the line had been crossed, they finally found it, was in 1993 when Ted Danson appeared at the roast of Whoopi Goldberg, who he was dating at the time, and he hosted the thing in blackface and dropped the N-word over a dozen times. And the Friars Club was forced to denounce him and put out a formal apology because everybody got up in arms about it. I mean, pretty much literally the only person that supported him was Whoopi in the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the really early big blow-ups up against that sort of humor. I mean, basically you had him and C. Thomas Howell alone in the wilderness.
But C. Thomas Howell at least learned his lesson.
He's a soul man.
Yeah.
I can always stop taking the pills. Yes,
but I mean, who would have thought that trying to do like an old minstrel show was a good idea?
Another bit of trivia we've got here.
Take tanning pills?
The most frequent roasters on the classic roster were comedian Nipsy Russell and impressionist Rich Little. They showed up most often on Dean Martin's Man of the Week roasts, each appearing 24 times.
Nipsey Russell is friggin' hilarious.
Yes.
Especially when he starts rhyming.
He was...
I love when he talked about Reagan. that line about that I told you guys about Reagan. He's like, I get to rub elbows with the governor. I got to rub elbows. He won't shake my hand.
Yeah, he was always kind of the token African American that they could poke fun at, but he just poked back just as hard.
Well, that's something.
It was always him or Sammy Davis.
Yeah, and I mean, it seemed to be that there was this. I mean, for 1974, the blatant racism of it. I mean, for God's sakes, the first one I watched was the roast of Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin says that Sammy was so poor they couldn't afford a crib and they had to put him into a hollowed-out watermelon.
Yikes!
I was just like,
but you know what's funny about that though is that
everything. That's what's funny about that is because Sammy was laughing at it too.
Well, that's just it. They even though they were making those comments, they would follow it up with things that showed that there was a brotherhood there, and they were doing it all in good fun, and everyone was in on the joke.
Well, and that's the thing is they're using racial elements to poke fun at someone who they have an obvious amount of love for. It's not the standard like don't punch down, punch up. At this point, they're not punching down; they're punching sideways at someone who they see as a peer.
Right. That would be the similar would be like me making an Irish joke at Josh and Josh making a Polish joke at me.
And everybody gets their shots at everybody.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I mean, there is a man of the hour.
Exactly.
But nobody is off limits.
I mean, roasts are just as much about getting the people on the dais as it is about getting the person you're honoring.
Right.
Sure.
But
standards of humor have changed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they definitely.
Even that said, there's a lot of shit that they said in these early roasts that would not fly today.
Oh yeah.
We'll get more into that. Let's finish up the trivia real quick. So, no roasts were broadcast between 1980 and 1983, partially due to the MGM Grand Fire of 1980. If you guys don't know about that, that was fucking huge. Like the biggest fire Las Vegas has ever seen.
Wow.
Oh.
They found people's bodies still sitting at the slot machines because they didn't want to leave their lucky machine.
Oh my God, that's so sad.
Oh jeez.
Yep.
God. So now here's the thing: the first roast that I saw, looking up and researching, was in 1973, for Johnny Carson. So it had a massive list of 22 different celebrities on the roster, including Red Fox, Truman Capote, George Burns, and Jonathan Winters.
And I watched that one, and that is a very, very good one.
I watched that. Yeah.
It's a little bit rough, but it's funny.
Although,
well, it's funny when after Truman Capote gets on, and they're like, "This is why you're a writer." he just was bad.
Well, and near the end of that one, Foster Brooks is a presenter, and he's like, I'm not going to say the evening was long, but I didn't need a shave when we started. He's got the full beard.
So Dean Martin has only roasted 2 pairs of celebrities, Rowan and Martin, known for Laugh-In, and Jack Klugman and Tony Randall, the Odd Couple. There has only been one posthumous roast of George Washington for the bicentennial year.
I didn't watch that one. I've never seen that one.
I have never seen that one either, but I think the Rowan and Martin one probably is pretty hilarious. Some of the
it was during the which one was it? The I think it was the Mr. T roast. I'm not 100% sure, but one of the guys, I think it was Dick Martin was doing his roast, and his jokes were just bombing, and he just stopped in the middle of his roast and just took all his cards and just threw them over his shoulder and just walked off.
Now, some of the key roasters on this have been Dean Martin, of course, as the man running the joint. The immense Don Rickles, who I think if I was ever being roasted and saw Don Rickles get on the stand, I would curl up into a ball and cry, because that man he can insult literally anybody, as seen when he does the Reagan inaugural ball and just rips on Reagan through the entire thing. Nipsey Russell, Foster Brooks, Milton Berle, who I'm pretty sure there's some Milton Berle comments that never made it on the air. I'm just saying, for what I know about Milton Berle.
I'm pretty sure there were some penis jokes that didn't make the air, yeah.
There's probably some dick jokes in there. Phyllis Diller, again, because of Milton Berle.
Again, more penis jokes that didn't make the air.
And Rich Little, who is still, was, and I will always hold as probably the best impersonator ever.
We kind of blazed past Phyllis Diller, but she holds another distinction. She is the first woman to ever attend a Friars Club roast.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, she had to disguise herself as a man to get in because women were not allowed.
Huh.
She was allowed to be on the dais and doing roasts before women were allowed to be members of the Friars Club.
Wow.
She's no Carol Channing.
Because women were not allowed to be part of the Friars Club until 1988.
Really? That late?
Yep.
Holy crap.
Yep.
That's nuts. I was about to apply to become a member of the Friars Club, but then there's an essay section. I have time to do an essay right now. So, some of the quotes that we posted from our favorite lines. Jackie Gleason roast from Dean Martin himself. Imagine Nipsey.
From Jackie Gleason.
During
his rebuttal. Yeah.
Oh, it was his rebuttal.
Yeah.
So Jackie Gleason to Nipsey Russell says, "Imagine, Nipsey, if you had been born white, you could have been Sammy Davis Jr."
Yikes.
Yeah, I know, right?
And that's just so brilliant. Don Rickles had another Sammy Davis Jr. slam in one of them where he just at one point he makes a joke towards him, and Sammy just kind of looks at him like, "Whoa." He's like, "Hey, calm down. 10 years ago, you wouldn't have even been allowed in this place."
Yikes.
I think one of my favorite ones on Sammy Davis Jr. was lost his name. One of the Rat Pack.
Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra,
the least known of
Joey
the Rat
Bishop.
Pack. Joey Bishop. So Joey Bishop is talking about Sammy Davis Jr. converting into Judaism. And he says, so he calls me and he says, "I'm really nervous. I've never been to the temple before by myself. I don't know what to do. Will you go with me?" He's like, "I can't make it at this time." He says, "But I can't make it at 8:30, but I can be there at 9. So I'll get there then." And he says, so Sammy Davis Jr. says, "I'll meet you. I'll be in the front on the right in the temple." And
I can already see where this is going.
And Joey Bishop is like he thinks I couldn't find him in a temple. It was just...
Oh, you blend.
Then Dean Martin on Sinatra, he's commenting, in high school, Frank never participated in extracurricular activities like nature study, paintings, or ceramics. He says Frank's hobby was most interesting one. He was an amateur gynecologist. Now, for 1974, that's really friggin' risque for them. That's solid blues. So also,
Well, it's probably allowed because it's probably somewhat true.
Probably, yeah. And then Foster Brooks on Hubert Humphreys. I still don't know how we lost. Just bad luck, I say. You happen to be running for president on the same day as Richard Nixon.
He goes on and on that bit. Like one day, either way, would have come out different. And this is right after Hubert Humphreys lost to Nixon, after being LBJ's vice president.
And he was on the dais?
Yeah. He was the man of the hour.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I watched because...
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, the political ones are most of the ones I watched. I watched Reagan, I watched Humphreys.
Yeah, and I was surprised. When the first one that I watched was the Sammy Davis Jr. one, and when I saw Hubert Humphreys on the dais, I was like, "Holy cow!"
Well, the Bob Hope one had General Omar Bradley.
I know, right? I mean, that's not something you would see happening today at all.
No, because real, actual A-list celebrities will not go on the roast now, because, as we'll talk about later, the not temperament, I guess, of the roast has changed.
Right. I mean, they used to be...
That's a word I'm looking for, the spirit of the roasts.
They used to be like a celebration of if you were being roasted, you were relevant in pop culture. And even back then, the politicians were. Like, people knew who Ronald Reagan was well before he made his run at presidency.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and just look that Truman Capote was on there, and he wasn't... he was a writer, for God's sake.
Yeah.
But yeah, just real quickly, we did the rundown of some of the key roasters, but I kind of want to talk a little bit about each one of them, or some of the roasters at least.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just Foster Brooks. For those of you that don't know Foster Brooks, look up some of his stuff. The only person that is comparable as far as playing a drunk is Dudley Moore.
Yeah.
Foster Brooks got it down. He's got the whole hiccup in the middle of talking, and just the sideward glances, and at the Lucille Ball one, at one point he's trying to claim that he dated her in high school, and he's all like, isn't that right, Luce? He's like, that's what the football team used to call her.
Yeah, and that was his shtick,
Yep. And he was always somebody's either ex whatever, or their cardiologist, or their veterinarian, or their pilot.
Yeah. That actually started happening more and more. Is that Dom DeLuise showed up as someone's director, or as their personal chef, or they always seem to have this what's the word?
Shtick.
Yeah, a shtick, like a character actor.
Sid Caesar did it. I think it was the Bob Hope roast. I can't remember which one, but yeah. It was definitely common for someone to pretend to be somebody else. They did somebody for Bob Hope. His quote unquote caddy
look at
came
Don
out.
Rickles.
Do we have to?
Not up close.
No, Don Rickles roast. Casey Kasem came out dressed as Hitler.
What?
I missed that.
And he did a whole bit
awesome.
where he was roasting Don Rickles, but he was doing it as Hitler, so he was slamming his fists on the thing and yelling the entire time.
And as he walked off, for Casey Kasem to take.
Holy crap!
Exactly.
I can see a lot of comedians doing that, but not him. That's
crazy. Now,
as he walked off, Dean Martin's he's like, that's an upcoming comedian, Casey Kasem.
One of the best bits that I saw had to have been during the Sinatra roast, when they had Columbo come up, and it just rolls on and on because he keeps doing.
Because he did it in character.
Yeah, he came and Dean Martin came up and did a whole statement about how they got the picture of the album cover of Sinatra where he's leaning up against the lamppost and he's got the the raincoat over his shoulder, and they couldn't figure out what was missing from it, and they saw this guy walking, and he was wearing the raincoat, and they took the raincoat from him and used it in the picture, and he went on that Columbo was the guy who walked by, so it's actually Columbo's raincoat in the picture on the album, and Columbo comes up, and I forgot the actor's name.
Peter Falk.
Peter Falk, yeah.
Yeah, and
Peter Falk,
he
yeah.
just rolls for, it's gotta be like a 10-minute bit, where every time he stops to turn away, I mean, he's borrowing a pen from people to get an autograph from Sinatra before he leaves, and he's reading off the letter to the invitation, and he's talking about his wife, and hey, there's just one more thing before I go. And just out of the blue, he turns and he asks Dean Martin if his shoes are rented or not, and it's just. But, I mean, it's great to see these comedians and these actors up there. It seems like their goal, besides entertaining the crowd, is to see how badly they can make the other actors on the dais crack up.
Yeah, and Don Rickles gets a shot at him when he sits back down, and he talks about, hey, Peter Falk, Columbo. No, look over here. Riffing on his glass eye.
Yeah, he's hilarious. I mean, especially, am I moving too fast for you?
Can I back up?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, can I back up to Foster Brooks for just a second?
Yeah.
I thought his shtick would get old with just being the guy that was drunk, but every time he came up, the man was on point with his humor, and he nailed the character so much that it was always funny. And I think one of my favorite bits was during the Johnny Carson one. He comes up and he's talking to Johnny Carson, and doing his bit, and then he turns to Dean Martin. He goes, "Hey, Ed," and then he just goes on with his bit, like. Because they were saying Ed McMahon couldn't be there.
the Jackie
and it's just so nonchalant. It's a throwaway line.
At the Jackie Gleason roast, he came up and he didn't even look at Jackie Gleason as he walked up, and he just stepped up to the podium, leaned over to Dean. He's like, "Which one is Jackie?"
And that's the thing, is like each of them have their shtick. But they're so honed at it. You know what I mean? It's like they're so good at the one shtick they do. Columbo, his shtick is so good. Foster Brooks, his thing is dead on. It doesn't matter what character he's technically playing, whether he's, you're the director that he used to work with, or one of the actors that he used to work with. I mean, just the random stuff. Every single one of them had they had their act down. And, something else that I really enjoyed about
Ruth Buzzy.
Oh, Ruth Buzzy, when she came out and she's got the hairnet on, when she started making out with Joey Bishop.
Yeah.
That was hilarious. I mean, it's Ruth Buzzy comes out and does a whole, I think it was the Dean Martin roast?
No, because I didn't watch that one this time.
Okay, because
she was on a lot of them.
Yeah,
she came out and beat the hell out of everybody with her purse.
Yeah, that was her shtick.
But the thing is, the one thing I liked about it is, they're all ripping on each other. They're all, literally nothing. There's no holds barred on everybody. But there is a sense of class through the entire thing. Sinatra gets up and starts doing the rebuttal, or Dean Martin, who is, 3 sheets to the wind.
Until Dean gets so drunk that he can't even talk anymore. Like towards the end of the roast, he's trying to introduce people. He's like,
"Boy, they beat on him heavily."
There's several times where they really just hammer on him.
Yeah, because he did get drunk during them. I mean, he was drinking before and during and after the shows. So,
well, it's his show. Who's going to stop him? I mean, who's going to tell Dean Martin not to drink? So, Josh, what about you? We haven't heard from you in a while.
Honestly, like most of the early stuff, I was going back and forth, watching different Foster Brooks bits, and this isn't going to be the Foster Brooks episode, so yeah, that was my focus because I just found that guy hilarious.
Did any of you guys watch the Mr. T roast?
Oh yeah,
I think
a little bit.
How incredibly,
of course, Josh did.
Racist was that bit that Ricky Schroeder did?
Oh my God!
Like whoever wrote that for him, I'm like, oh my God! I can't believe you're having a 12-year-old kid say this shit.
Okay,
because
I missed it.
It was not only like it was not really that funny, it was kind of funny for the time, but now looking back on it, like, oh my Jesus, this is racist. It's like, he's basically like reading Little Black Sambo.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I mean, it was more cringy than funny, which actually was quite a bit of the Mr. T roast, but unfortunately.
Once you got past the joke of he's got a lot of jewelry and he's a big, tough guy, they didn't really do a whole lot more than that. I think everybody was afraid of making Mr. T mad.
Well, and in general, that was one of the challenges for the early shows, is like hitting one or two key characteristics and having different comics say, okay, this is your topic, try to make jokes about it.
Right.
Well, and then you have some of them that were like their hand. Here's your, what was the one for Sammy Davis Jr.? They had Wilt Chamberlain and, God, who else was on there? Football player, played for the Jets, Pat.
Joe Montana?
Joe Montana was there. And Joe Montana was pretty much, you can tell, he still had his note card.
Joe Namath.
Yeah, he had his note card up there. And he read his jokes, and he sat down. It was...
And you could tell some of them were highly edited. Like, certain people would only get, like, 2 or 3 jokes or 2 or 3 whatevers, Go ahead, Joel.
Oh, I was just going to say, and I think you guys kind of touched on it a little bit, but something that I just, from watching both and never really being a fan of the new ones and not really seeing any of the old ones, no matter which one I watched from the original roast from the Dean Martin show, there was always a sense of camaraderie. There was always a sense that everybody person, and no matter how vicious they got and how racist, vulgar it was for the day, I always felt that everybody will time, and there wasn't this sense of, I'm better than the other. Like somebody said earlier, everybody was a peer.
Yeah, and that is a great comment, because they do step into it like this is not somebody who's below me. That it seems like everybody on the dais saw themselves as equals, and like you said, nobody was off limits. You can get up there and slam on whoever it was that was up there, and just go with it. So,
ooh, favorite roast.
Let's save it to the end. See if we compare it.
Or are we going to save that for the end?
Yeah, save it for the end. We'll compare it against the new ones.
Fair enough.
All right.
So you want to go to the break?
We'll go to the break, and we'll be back in a little bit. All right, we are back, and we are talking about celebrity roasts again, because that's how the show works. We talk about it during the first time, and then we talk kind of about the same thing on the second time. So,
and like I said, Comedy Central took over the whole roast thing in, what did I say, was it 2002, somewhere around there? I don't know. Whatever. Numbers don't matter, you get the idea. And they were doing it with the Friars Club for about a decade or so, and then they split off for whatever reasons. Comedy Central decided, hey, you know what? We've already mined all the comedians and figured out the concept. We don't need you guys anymore. So they just started doing their own. They split away from the Friars Club. Friars Club did their own thing. Comedy Central Roast has their own thing, and they put one out once a year. The Comedy Central Roast.
Well, and Comedy Central has figured out how to get better ratings. And this is the key difference between the then and the now, is at a certain point, Comedy Central realized they got better ratings when the roasts were people being mean to someone everyone already hated.
Hence the Justin Bieber roast.
Yeah, Bieber, Pamela Anderson, Flavor Flav, Hasselhoff.
And that's the thing, is like Pat had actually said earlier, that the spirit had changed.
Because it used to be almost an honor, and like it was its own form of like a lifetime recognition award, and it was like people would see it as an honor for Don Rickles to make fun of you. Whereas nowadays it's like it's a way to take somebody we don't like and take them down a peg.
Well, I will say this, is that I'm looking at the Friars Club page right now, and they gave Don Rickles a Lifetime Achievement Award.
That's well-deserved.
Oh, yeah. And he's sitting there with, this is a while ago, but there's Joan River.
John
Sorry.
River.
It was after the face, it's, but Bob Saget and Louis Black are all standing around him, and Bob Newhart is there. I mean, that's some quality comedy crowd right there. And there's
that's one of my favorite celebrity fact trivia's. Whatever is Don Rickles, as mean and abrasive as he is. His real life best friend is Bob Newhart, one of the nicest guys in all of show business.
Are you kidding me? That's fantastic.
Yep.
What we're talking about, I'm almost jumping a little ahead here, but a perfect example is someone who got roasted in both the then and the now. And I don't know if you guys watched the more recent Chevy Chase roast.
Oh,
am I the only one?
I watched.
Yeah, I saw that abortion of a roast.
It is so painful to watch because Chevy Chase had a good time in the 1990s, and then he came back for one of the modern ones, and he didn't realize that he was being roasted now because everyone hated him, and it was like, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but unlike the first time when it was a dais of his peers, this was just a bunch of nobodies just trying to take a shot at Chevy Chase because they couldn't get anybody on his level. That was what I was about to say. It wasn't his friends. None of his friends showed up, and he didn't know it was going to happen.
Well, that's your mistake, because he doesn't have any friends anymore.
Well, I don't think he even knew that. And he learned that night, and at the end of the roast, he looks into the camera dead serious and says, "That hurt," and just walks out and goes straight to his hotel room.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it was brutal.
See, I couldn't even make it through the whole thing. That was...
the best line of that entire roast, though, was Chevy Chase's proof that you can snort the funny out of yourself.
Oh, shit. Now, I'm looking at the Friars Club webpage again here, and some of the people that they've roasted in the recent past have been like Terry Bradshaw, Betty White, Quentin Tarantino, we talked about that, Matt Lauer, Kelsey Grammer, Hugh Hefner, and Jack Black.
Yeah, and those are the sorts of roasts following the tradition, but that's not what is most common and what we're going to spend most of our time on. It's more the Comedy Central. They got to the point where there were so many D-listers and the performance was so bad, like they canceled the Kid Rock one.
Well, I think part of the Kid Rock one was that I had read that he wanted to have it in Detroit, and Comedy Central was like, yeah, we're not going to Detroit.
Yeah, that's actually one of the things I put in the trivia. That's funny that you bring that up.
Oh yeah, let's start get to the trivia before we get too far ahead of ourselves.
Okay, so June 2016, it was announced that the next figure to be roasted would be Rob Lowe, which
that seems like they're almost getting back to the roots.
It does.
Because, I mean, Rob Lowe is somebody that's actually liked and respected despite some of his past misgivings.
Well, and that's the thing. I like Rob Lowe. I used to not like him, but then I started watching Parks and Recreation.
Oh, you can't help but love him on Parks and
that's the thing is, like, I was laughing when I first got the introduction to him. I was laughing at it so badly, and I'm like trying to, Susie's like, why do you think this is so funny? I'm saying, because Rob Lowe is
that show literally saved his career.
Right.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah,
literally?
I mean, yeah,
literally
saved his career, because in this show, have you watched any of it, Joel?
Of the Rob Lowe one?
Yeah.
No, Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec.
Oh.
He is, I mean, for as much as you know as Rob Lowe as always being like the douchebag in the old 80s movies, he is the nicest guy you've ever met in Parks and Rec.
He's just so perfect in that role.
And yeah, he plays it off perfectly. I mean, and you can't help but love him. So,
of trying to be the perfect human being.
So, during Charlie Sheen's roast, for some reason or other, they had Steve-O there because they had run out of C-list and they went down to D-list. Steve-O made the joke, the last times this many nobodies were at a roast, Great White was playing.
Wow.
Which, later on, Steve-O went, can you take that out? Because that was
that's a great joke, but that's a little bit offensive.
Yeah, that may be a little bit too far. Some of the roastees have stated that certain topics are off limit. Pamela Anderson refused to have any jokes about her having Hep C. Joan Rivers prohibited jokes about her daughter, which makes sense. David Hasselhoff has said, no, go ahead, knock yourself out. because
somehow David Hasselhoff has an ego that is completely bulletproof.
Because nobody can make fun of David Hasselhoff better than David Hasselhoff can make fun
right?
of
Exactly.
Well, and Joan Joan Rivers roast, they mentioned her daughter, but it wasn't in any offensive way, and her daughter even came up and roasted her too.
Yeah.
Okay, so but also Charlie Sheen initially was like, yeah, go ahead. But then he said, hey, please don't talk about my mom. Also, like I said before, Kid Rock roast had tried to go up twice, but he insists on doing them in Detroit. And like I said before, Comedy Central's like, yeah, we'll go all sorts of places, but not Detroit.
And if you were to guess who has the most appearances on Comedy Central roasts, you would probably be right because it is Jeff Ross with 12.
Well,
But
he's like,
funny enough, he's never actually been a roast master on any of the Comedy Central roasts. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, I was going to say he's like considered Mr. Roast though anymore, like modern day.
Yeah, he's the guy as far as roasts are concerned, but he doesn't actually host any of them.
I think he's only the guy because Greg Giraldo died.
He was still the guy even before that because he before they split apart, he was the head of the Friars Club. Jeff Ross was.
What?
Oh, was he really?
Yep.
That's
I didn't know that.
nuts. Head of like the Friant. Wow.
Because they always made jokes about him, living in his car, and he was always at the club, and he didn't have a home, and that's all he had.
Yeah, I mean he wasn't known before the Comedy Central roast. That's for sure.
Huh? I did not know that.
So yeah, some key roasters from the now, as we said, Jeff Ross, well known for his ability to roast on the fly. Greg Giraldo, the late great Greg Giraldo. Unfortunately, we lost him a few years ago.
May have been one of the funniest men. I'd call him the modern Don Rickles, or at least he could have been if he'd lived a little longer.
Yeah.
How did he die?
I mean,
How'd he die?
drug overdose.
Oh. Hanging on, looking up his picture. Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah, he was good.
Yeah, I mean, he just had some of the best one-liners, just so good. Like, he had actually one of my favorite lines in all of the roast history. At the Pamela Anderson roast, she had sitting next to her throughout the whole thing, Courtney Love, who was just acting a fool the whole time.
Oh, Jesus.
And Greg Giraldo says, "Jesus Christ, Courtney Love, how is it possible that you look worse than Kurt Cobain?"
Oh,
Wow.
oh my God. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Some of the
Then
other...
you got Gilbert Gottfried, Lisa Lampanelli, Natasha Leggero, Norm Macdonald, who had one of the best roast performances. It was like in his anti-roast.
Oh, the one for... Yeah, I put that on there for the David Hasselhoff one. Or no. For the... crap. Bob Saget.
Yeah, that's who. Yeah, I could
He's
not think
like,
of who it was.
you have a lot of well-wishers here. Because they all would like to throw you in a well. And he has just one anti-joke after another. But the thing is, his delivery... I
mean, if you took what he did and just read it, it would just sound like the worst thing you've ever seen.
Like I did.
I don't know if you guys know the story about that. He was just told, try to be shocking, and he thought that the most shocking thing he could do as a professional comic would be to literally tell jokes out of a joke book his dad gave him called Jokes for Retirement Parties.
Yep.
And that's what he did.
Which is a joke book from like the 1950s.
But it was genius.
Was that like Andy Samberg's take on it when he was on James Franco's?
No, because Norm Macdonald was actually funny.
I liked Andy Samberg's, but he was doing he was saying nice things, but then he, boom, roasted at the end.
Yeah.
Right.
He was just trying to do the anti-roast thing, whereas Norm Macdonald was just... Norm Macdonald is one of those guys who he's always the funniest guy in the room, or always the smartest guy in the room, just about. I mean, his comedy is always going to be above most people, and he's always going to be trying to make the comedians laugh more than he is the audience. To him, he gets off on making other comedians laugh. He's a comedian's comedian.
He really is. I mean, honestly, I think he's one of those that, you never entirely know what he's going to do.
Right.
When he comes up there.
Like he and Louis C.K. are kind of the same thing. It's like, as soon as they start saying something, it's going to be funny.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go with... Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, the second words start coming out of their mouth, you just can't help but smile because you're like, oh my God, where are we going?
I will have to agree with Joel on the Andy Samberg thing, because if you've watched a couple of his bits, he's always doing a shtick character. The character of this idiot who was asked to do a roast and doesn't understand what a roast is. And he constantly does that same bit. And then the bit gets sillier and sillier and sillier, and then he ends with one actual roast insult joke.
I guess I'd have to check those out because none of that sound. I don't think I've seen any of that. That doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah, at the beginning of it, when he started, I was like, okay, this is not great. And then as it went on, as a joke wore on, and he kind of started actually saying some things that were kind of mean, and then, like Josh said, he kind of ends it on that note. It got to be very funny.
It's one of those things, kind of like, when you're an expert at something, sometimes it's almost more craft to look like you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, like Joel every episode.
Right. Boom. Roasted.
No, so, but some of the, we wrote down some of the favorite quotes. So Pat has down, so Roseanne.
Yeah, in the Roseanne roast, Anthony Jeselnik, this was one of his first appearances. I think it was like his third time he'd ever been in a roast. And Katie Seagal was on the dais. And he said, "Oh, the great Katie Seagal." He said, "You worked on Married with Children, the show that changed comedy. Sons of Anarchy, the show that took drama to a whole new level. And 8 Simple Rules, the show that killed John Ritter."
Oh, shit.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, see mine, I'm looking Gilbert Gottfried on Bob Saget. So I watched Bob's last HBO special in high def, because in order to enjoy it, you have to be either high or deaf.
That was the same episode where Gilbert went on for like 5 minutes about Bob Saget did not kill and rape a woman in 1984.
Yes.
There is no evidence. Don't bother looking for evidence that Bob Saget raped and killed a woman in 1984.
My personal favorite from this, Lisa Lampanelli, whose stand-up I usually don't like, but she was so good as a roaster. When they did the William Shatner roast, she comes out seemingly playing it straight. She says, "We've all seen Bill Shatner's nuts, but only George Takei has tasted them."
Oh, my.
And they cut to George and George found it funnier than anybody else.
That's fantastic.
I don't mean to correct you, but wasn't that Betty White that said that?
Oh shit! I think you're right. That was Betty White.
Yeah,
That actually makes it better. Just because
You're
Lisa
right.
Lampanelli is me.
Well, no, she's really funny, but you're right. It was Betty White. It was a different Lampanelli bit, and I transposed who said what. I should have double checked that.
Sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. Call me out on accuracy.
Woohoo!
You're inaccurate.
You know, something I noticed on these versus the original ones is on the original ones, the Dean Martin ones, everybody was laughing. There was only very seldom where you didn't see somebody laugh. Like Yul Brynner was on one of them that I watched. Actually, he was on, I think, the first one I watched. And he didn't laugh until he was on stage because he wanted to be the guy. But on the modern ones, a lot of people look upset or like they don't really want to be there. And it kind of takes you out of the moment. I don't know if anybody noticed that.
Yeah, it's weird.
I don't know if it was just editing that they did back in the day, because I did notice they sometimes looped some people's laughs. So maybe everybody wasn't laughing back in the day the same, but they just edited it to look differently.
I think it's interesting because I think that if you cut individual jokes, I laughed more and harder at modern ones, but I thought the shows were always better when you look at the older ones because the roasty was in on the joke. And if for some reason that means something, even if the individual bits, pound for pound, I found funnier just because standards of comedy have changed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it almost seems like nowadays they paid a little bit of tribute to him at the very end, like they're supposed to, but it doesn't seem consistently genuine.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like more of them are doing it because I want to say just like, oh, well, this is just one more box I have to check off.
Well, and there's more. Oh crap! I forgot what I was going to say. I legitimately lost my train of thought.
Well,
here, I'll give you a Lisa. While you're thinking, I'll give you a Lisa Lampanelli line.
No, I remember.
Oh, you got it? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, there's more about them picking on everybody on the dais, and then they only have one or two lines for the actual guests of honor. Whereas in the old one, they maybe picked on people here and there, but the primary focus was the roastee, which I thought was interesting. But what were you going to say, Pat?
It definitely has become everybody that steps up is expected to say something about every single other person on the dais. You're not allowed to skip anybody anymore. That's for sure.
Right.
One of the funnier ones that I saw was when I watched the Dean Martin roast, where they actually had Dean Martin up there. Now listen to the list on this one: Don Rickles, Orson Welles, Paul Lynde, Joan Namath, Barry Goldwater, Angie Dickinson, Muhammad Ali, Jimmy Stewart, Gabe Kaplan, I don't know where that came from, Gene Kelly, Hubert Humphrey, Charlie Callis, John Wayne, Joey Bishop, Rich Little, Ruth Buzzy, Tony Orlando, Georgia and Engel, Nipsey Russell, Foster Brooks, Howard Cosell, Dan Rowan, Dick Martin, and Bob Hope. Holy crap! That's a lineup. And honestly, you know who I thought was hilarious in that same, like we were just talking, in that same Norm Macdonald type of feel, was Orson Welles.
Really?
Oh my God, he was free, because Orson Welles comes up and he does that. I mean, I'm not trying to do a throwback to the then, but I'm trying to do a parallel to like the dry humor of Norm Macdonald. And I mean, Orson Welles comes up and he starts talking about Dean's musical contribution to the world. And he's like, let me read for you some of the lyrics that he has contributed. When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. And it's just that straight, dry Norm Macdonald type humor. I mean, and that's just a parallel that I saw. I mean, that seems like there is always one person in the group that is the dry humor that you're kind of like, I'm not entirely sure where they're going with this.
Right.
But again, that's kind of humor that I like.
Well, it's kind of like on the old ones where they had an astronaut on one of them. As I mentioned earlier, Truman Capote. You know, I can see that.
Yeah.
Pat, you were trying to get in on a Lampanelli quote.
Oh no, I was just going to say I had one for you if you wanted a Lampanelli quote.
Hit us.
It's one of my favorite lines from all the roasts of all time is in the Flavor Flav roast.
Is it the bit about the clock?
No.
Oh, okay.
When she says she says about Flavor Flav, she says, "You look like Magic Johnson is supposed to look."
Oh shit!
She also turns to him and says, "Dude, enough with the clock. You could take it off. You haven't had anywhere to be in 13 years."
Wow.
The roasts back then were ripping on each other, but like the Justin Bieber roast. I think the thing that turned me off on that one is I don't even know which comedian that came up and did it, but it was like, hey, Justin Bieber, you've been around since 2000 and whatever, and it's 2000 now. Wow, life moves fast when you're a piece of shit. And it's like there's so many just like they're taking the easy way out.
Oh yeah,
that's not a clever joke at all. Yeah,
there was nothing. I was just like, really? I'm like, you could. There's so much you could wrap around that. You mean work a little bit about it. Work for your roast, But they may just.
But like we've already said a couple times, and that's just proof right there. It's like there used to be more. It was more of a respect thing. Now it's more of a we're going to get this guy up here and just tear him a new asshole.
Right, because that's what people tune in for.
Right.
But yeah, no. So
Greg Giraldo, speaking of Lisa Lampanelli, Greg Giraldo had another great line about, and this is an example of making fun of somebody without just being mean to them. It's just a funny joke in general. When he's talking about Lisa Lampanelli, he says he brings up the Octomom, and he's like, Lisa Lampanelli's got something in common with the Octomom. She's never been pregnant, but she has had 80 fingers inside of her.
Oh, shit.
Wow.
See, yeah, that's funny, but I mean, I don't know. I fall back on the class of the then. That and the fact that everybody was pretty much shit-faced by the time the second commercial break went around.
Yeah. And I enjoy, like, if you look at the highlights reels of the old ones, I do like them, but when I watched the whole thing, I found myself bored more often watching the old ones with less laughs per minute. That doesn't mean I think that they were worse shows. I think they were better shows. But part of it is just like what we find funny changes over the years.
And I think a lot of it is editing changes over the years.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
For sure.
And we're a lot more used to the rapid fire editing of today.
Yeah. So.
Did any of you see the situations?
Yeah.
Did you watch that?
Yeah. Twice, unfortunately.
Wait.
I
watched it when you posted it, and then I watched the roast that had it in it. So, yeah, I watched it twice.
I don't remember anybody bombing that bad on any
of them. That might... Because, I mean, like talking about the editing, usually if somebody is really bad, they just... Like I said earlier, they only include one or two of their jokes, if any. Some of them just don't even make the final cut at all because they were just so bad. I mean, because people do bomb all the time, and I find it funny that they decided, you know what, screw the situation. This guy's done. Let's get his career over with, and then they went ahead and aired what he said. And man,
then they used it as fodder for the rest of the show too.
Yeah,
and Jeff Ross even tried to save him.
Just bad. I mean, and the thing is, you could tell that he didn't write those jokes. He just didn't know how to deliver them. They weren't great jokes, but they weren't bad, and he just completely destroyed the delivery. So they just had no chance. They were just DOA.
Well, and then when he tried to put in his own ad lib, it just got mean spirited and just dumb.
Yeah.
Well,
if you haven't watched it,
I haven't watched it because honestly, when you said this situation, I was concerned that something had gone wrong with the audio. No, I think that's one of the things is that the concept of a roast, I mean, back then it's saying something witty and biting about the person that you're roasting, and now it's just saying something crude and offensive. How can,
I mean, they're still somewhat witty. I don't mean somewhat. I mean, they're still like witty and funny and everything, but it's just, yeah, there's an underlying mean spirit to them.
Yeah. So, some questions here. From the then and the now, put them all together. What is your favorite roast?
From each era or
no?
Total?
From total.
For me, it's got to be Johnny Carson. No question.
The very first one.
Yeah.
I'm going with Don Rickles just because everybody was really, really sinking their teeth in. Because that's what he was known for. And so to me, it had a lot more of an edge, but because of the time, it was still more subtle than any of the modern ones, for sure.
Pat?
I would probably honestly have to say the Flavor Flav roast. Even though I don't care about him, I think the jokes were just... I think those had they had the funniest jokes throughout the whole episode.
What about you, Mike?
For me... Probably the Sinatra one, because it was like, I just think because it's taking place in Las Vegas and the situation going on around, it's like, are I just have this vision of everyone going, we get to roast who? And it's like, we get to say what to who? And the Sinatra one had a great lineup, and that was also the one with, Peter Falk showing up as, Columbo, and that just did it for me. I think that may be my favorite right there. Now, with that, who do you think is the best roaster?
I'm going to go with Jeff Ross. He's my favorite.
Then and now?
Yeah. He's my favorite roaster of all time. I just think his stuff is... He may not have like the funniest lines of every single roast, but overall, his jokes are the funniest consistently, and just like from the moment he starts to the time he's done. From the moment the roast starts till the time he's done, he's the best.
Nice. What about you, Josh? Favorite roaster?
I'm going with Greg Giraldo. Just his stuff is consistently clever. Has that nice, like Lampanelli's stuff sometimes is just so mean, but it's funny anyway. And then you've got his stuff is mean, but there's also this cleverness to it where even if he was talking about an imaginary person, it would still be funny because the joke's well crafted.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're talking then or now, right?
Both.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going Rowan and Martin.
Ooh, the pair.
Really?
Those two together just play off each other so well, and the stuff they say is just, my jaw is on the floor.
Nice. For me, probably Dean, just because he is so, I don't say unpredictable, but it's just like, I enjoy watching the slow descent into drunkenness on every episode. It's just like, there's usually a point in the middle of it where the wall comes down, and he realizes that he has to say whatever, he's just going to say whatever the hell he wants to say. But what about the best bit from the ones that you watched? Is I already gave tip to mine because the Columbo one I think is possibly my favorite out of all of them. But what about you guys?
Foster Brooks as Bob Hope's pilot was pretty funny.
I'm Foster Brooks as well, but it was Hubert Humphrey's former campaign advisor.
I love all the Foster's Brooks ones, but just to give us a little bit more flavor, I really enjoyed Art Carney coming out and doing his Ed Norton bit at the Jackie Gleason roast.
That was fantastic.
How they both fell right back into it as soon. He's just up there for like a good 30 seconds. She's doing it, and finally Jackie Gleason
gets him.
Yes, cut it out.
Yeah,
he starts
it was
slapping
great.
him around.
Yep.
Also, just tossing in a second, Dom DeLuise jumped in there and did a lot of great character bits also. But last question. You've got one DVD set you can have on the roast. Is it the now or is it the then?
I think you got to go. The thing about looking at it now, obviously looking at the Dean Martin roast now, all those people, majority of them are like, now at this point, legends. And I'm not saying like in the future, Anthony Jeselnik is going to be a legend, but, we don't have the luxury of 50 years time looking back on these and seeing who has become, who is revered now and who isn't, So, maybe in 50 years time, these roasts will be seen on the same level, but until that point, you got to go with the older ones, with the Dean Martin roast, because those guys are a lot of those guys are the Mount Rushmore or the Hall of Fame, of comedy.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to go with, in my opinion, you got to go with the Dean Martin roast just because star power alone.
I'm going then all the way. As much as I liked some of the bits from now, the then ones I felt good and enjoyed watching and smiled the whole time. The now ones I just kind of tuned out a lot of it because it was just so. It was just hard to watch sometimes, to be honest.
I think the now is actually funnier, but the then is just. You get the opportunity to just watch all these legends. So
I agree with Pat 100%.
Well, I'm afraid all four of us are going to have to go on this because it's like you have these legends of comedy and these legends of old school Vegas and Hollywood, all of them sitting on the same stage together, riffing off each other. And, like you said, Pat, we're not going to know, maybe, in another 50 years, Lisa Lampanelli is going to be known as some comedic genius. But, I'm just saying, there might be.
For some people, she already is. She's been doing insult comedy for a long time. I personally don't like her stuff. It's a little too just being edgy for the sake of being edgy. Mm-hmm. But she's very popular.
Cool. So, let's see. We got a end thought somebody posted up here. So, Jeff Ross stated, "You don't want to be a bully." Says you don't want to pick on people that aren't up for it. You want everyone to leave the show going, "That was so much fun. I wish I had been roasted." To me, that's the key, is to have everybody think of it as a party and not a competitive or mean. You want everyone to feel like they're Frank Sinatra surrounded by the Rat Pack, and you don't want them to feel like a deer about to get shot. That's
and I think he does that perfectly.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I really think he does. He just needs to convince his the other people about it. So
we'd be remiss if we didn't at least mention the Roast Me subreddit. I don't know if you guys, where Redditors put up their picture and like invite all commenters to just take their best shots.
So here's a question out to our listeners. Should we post a picture of the four of us and say roast us?
Fuck that.
Nope.
I don't care what the listeners say. It's not happening for me.
Nope. I'm out.
You can roast me. Fuck, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I could pretty much do that. Which one of the four should go on roast me? Our roast me. It's gonna be me.
That's a good one. See if we can start a poll.
Yeah.
I've already got one.
I tried to ask.
Yeah.
I had a poll.
I
And
don't
asked
care. I'll
something,
put-
but it didn't answer because it was just a stick.
Nobody can beat me up like I can, so I don't give a shit.
All right, yeah, and that's like I said, that's the genius of the David Hasselhoff one.
Yep.
When you step into it and you're like, nobody can screw with me better than I can screw with me, so you guys are at a disadvantage from the very beginning. So,
All right, so
Josh,
what do we have on tap next week?
Yeah, next week we have Adventures in Babysitting.
Excellent.
We're gonna sit on some babies. Apparently, they remade it in the last year.
Yeah, just like in June.
Why did that make you laugh?
Made me think of Shel Silverstein.
Oh, jeez.
Nice. So yeah, Adventures in Baby. They apparently was it Nickelodeon remade it.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna go ahead and say it's a piece of trash ahead of time. But
Well, as long as your mind is open.
yeah, but I'm gonna keep an open mind when I watch it.
If you want to give us your show ideas, or if you had a favorite moment from the roast that you think we were remiss in not mentioning, you can always give us a call at 708-NOW-RAP. That's 708-669-9727.
That is right. And if you want to check out our older stuff, iTunes, Stitcher, Blueberry, and TalkShoe.
And as always, you can reach out to us on Twitter at 40go14 or shoot us an email at 40go14@gmail.com.
Or you can call us at Josh's cell phone number, which is...
No, you can't. Can't do that.
I'm really glad that they actually, the suggestion was to do a show about roasting people and not just us roasting each other, because I can't even imagine how down the rabbit hole that would go.
That's a bad idea.
I'd be all right.
Yeah. All right, folks. Well, you guys have a good night, and we'll talk to you next week.
Boom. Roasted.
Okay, yeah, let's do the trivia. Get some trivia. Pat?
Pat?
Oh, son of a bitch. I've been talking with my mic off.
He's like, yeah, let's read some trivia.